His touch was toxic, but she couldn't resist. The landing bay of Elira Station was silent when the human arrived. Alien guards stood in a wide circle, their armor sealed tight, their eyes fixed on the small transport ship. Warning lights glowed soft blue across the metal walls. Signs in many alien languages repeated the same message again and again. Toxic life form, keep distance, no direct contact. The ship doors opened with a slow hiss. Luke Carter stepped out alone. He was tall compared to most Elira, but not large by human standards. His movements were calm and careful. His face showed no anger, no fear, only patience. His body was covered in a full containment suit, clear around the head, thick and layered around the hands and feet. Tubes ran along his back, filtering air and waste. To the Elira watching, he looked less like a guest and more like a sealed weapon. Commander Rin Tao raised one clawed hand. "Human Luke Carter," he said through a translator field, "you are aware that your presence here is considered a high-level biological threat." Luke nodded once. "Yes," he said, "I was told before I agreed to come." Some of the guards shifted. The word agreed confused them. No species agreed to be treated like this. "You will follow all isolation rules," Rin Tao continued. "You will not remove your suit. You will not approach any citizen of Elira within 5 body lengths. Failure will result in immediate removal or termination." Luke did not argue. "Understood," he said. That calm response unsettled them more than anger would have. From the upper observation level, Lyra Voss watched the scene in silence. She was a science officer, trained in xenobiology, and one of the few Elira chosen to study the human. Her kind had long avoided humanity. Humans were labeled death breeders, poison walkers, world eaters. Their blood carried metals. Their skin released oils toxic to most species. Even the air they breathed out contained traces of compounds dangerous to Elira lungs. And yet they survived. Lyra leaned closer to the glass, her eyes focused on Luke. He did not look like a monster. He stood quietly as guards scanned him with layered sensors. Chemical alarms spiked and settled. Radiation readings flickered and stabilized. Every system confirmed the same truth. The human was dangerous without trying to be. "How can something so calm be so deadly?" Lyra whispered to herself. She had read the files. Earth was a violent planet, unstable weather, constant tectonic movement, harsh gravity, endless bacteria, toxins in food, poisons in plants, predators that killed for territory. Humans did not evolve away from danger. They evolved inside it, and they adapted. Lyra's supervisor, Dr. Marin Soul, stood beside her. "Do not let curiosity weaken your judgment," Marin said. "This is not admiration. It is research." "I know," Lyra replied. But her eyes did not move away. Luke was escorted through sealed corridors into a containment wing built only for him. Floors auto-cleaned after every step. Walls adjusted air pressure and humidity to avoid leaks. Cameras followed his every movement. Inside his chamber, Luke removed his outer gloves only after confirming isolation locks. He sat on the narrow bed and exhaled slowly. Another station, another room, another reminder that he was not meant to touch this universe. Back on Earth, he had been a systems engineer, not a diplomat. But humans were sent where others could not go: toxic zones, radiation fields, alien worlds too dangerous for native life. He had volunteered because someone had to. A soft tone sounded in the room. "Human Luke Carter," a voice said. "This is Science Officer Lyra Voss. Do you hear me clearly?" "Yes," Luke answered, looking up at the ceiling camera. "I will be observing you during your stay. Our communication will be remote only." "That's fine," Luke said. There was a pause. "You show no signs of stress," Lyra noted. "Are you aware that most species experience panic when isolated this way?" Luke gave a small smile. "Humans get used to being alone," he said. "Space, deep sea, underground. We go where it's quiet." Lyra did not know how to respond to that. Their first sessions were simple: Questions, measurements, routine scans. Lyra asked about human biology. Luke answered honestly, about iron in blood, about bacteria living inside humans, about immune systems trained through constant battle. Each answer made her more uneasy. "Your body is at war with itself," she said during one session. "Yeah," Luke replied, "but it's a war we're winning." Other scientists mocked the project. They called it foolish, pointless, dangerous. "Why study a poison?" one asked. Lyra did not answer. Instead, she watched. She noticed how Luke always waited for permission before moving, how he apologized when alarms went off, even though he could not control them, how he asked if the scans hurt her equipment. No predator behaved like that. One cycle, a maintenance drone malfunctioned in the corridor near Luke's chamber. It sparked and released a cloud of industrial fumes. Elira technicians froze. The air was deadly to them. Before command could respond, Luke opened his chamber door. Alarms screamed. "Human, stop!" voices shouted. But Luke stepped into the smoke. He covered his face with his sleeve and moved fast. He dragged the disabled drone away from the breach and sealed the panel with his bare hands. His suit sensors flared red. Heat burned through the fabric. When the smoke cleared, he was on one knee, breathing hard. Med units rushed in after containment restored. Lyra stared at the screen. "He entered a lethal environment," she said, without hesitation. Marin Sol's voice was tight. "To him it was not lethal," she said, "only uncomfortable." That night, Lyra could not rest. She replayed the footage again and again. Humans were called toxic because they harmed others by existing, but they also walked through death like it was rain. What kind of species was shaped by that? The next session, Lyra asked a different question. "Luke," she said, "are you afraid of us?" He thought for a moment. "No," he said. "I think you're fragile, not weak, just not built for the same storms." The words should have offended her. Instead, they felt honest. Lyra ended the session early. As she left the lab, she realized something that unsettled her deeply. The danger was not that his touch was toxic. The danger was that she wanted to understand it. And that curiosity, once started, was already breaking the rules the next morning. Lyra arrived early at the observation lab. The soft hum of the station's life support filled the quiet space. Luke's chamber lights glowed faintly through the thick glass. He was sitting on the bed, reading a small tablet. His containment suit rested neatly on a rack. Lyra tapped her console to start the monitoring systems. Normally, she kept the protective barriers fully active. Sensors, force fields, and warning alarms, all standard protocol. Today, though, she made a small adjustment. Just enough to let her feel a tiny presence of him in the room. Not enough to harm her, but enough to see what would happen if rules were bent. Luke noticed immediately. His calm gray eyes lifted from the tablet, meeting her gaze through the glass. "You modified the barriers," he said quietly. Lyra's fingers froze over the controls. She did not answer at first. Her voice trembled slightly when she finally spoke. "I wanted to see how much influence your biology really has. The texts are vague, the sensors are too blunt." "I won't hurt you," Luke said. "If the readings go wrong, I can step back." It was strange to hear the words. Humans were said to be dangerous, uncontrollable, but here he was, offering caution. The juxtaposition puzzled Lyra. She felt something she had not anticipated: trust. Their session began. Lyra asked the standard questions at first. Blood chemistry, metabolism rates, immune responses. Luke answered carefully, but he also asked questions in return. "Your species evolved in a controlled environment," he said. "Your immune system avoids risk. Do you even know what it is to face danger daily?" Lyra frowned. "We do face challenges, but not like you. Your biology, it kills by accident. It's not survival, it's hazard." "It's survival," Luke corrected gently. "We survive not by avoiding danger, but by being inside it every day. We adapt. We endure. Sometimes our touch is lethal, sometimes it is healing. It depends on who we are with and how we respond." Lyra had no answer. She had never heard anyone speak like that. She had studied human records, watched videos, read mission logs. The theory never matched the reality, and now she was seeing the man behind it. Later, she went to the lab again. This time, she adjusted the controls more. Small pulses of air mixed with his suit emissions passed the sensor field. Alarms tripped softly, but she ignored them. Luke noticed and tilted his head. "You're curious," he said. "You're breaking rules," Lyra swallowed. "I want to know you are not just toxic. I can feel something else. Strength, endurance, maybe more." He did not smile. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Humans are dangerous and also ordinary. Maybe your species sees only one side. Maybe it's fear that blinds you." The days passed. Lyra kept bending the rules little by little. Each time, she recorded data carefully, as though the numbers could explain her own fascination. She discovered that when she allowed small exposures, her skin tingled, her pulse shifted slightly, but she did not collapse. Her species had never tolerated human presence closely. She was alive. Other scientists noticed. Whispers spread through the corridors. "Voss is reckless," one said. "She will die and it will be her fault. Or maybe she will be changed," another muttered, half afraid, half admiring. Lyra ignored them. She could feel herself thinking about Luke even when not at the lab. His calm presence, his careful speech, the way he moved with purpose inside the deadly containment suit. One afternoon, a system test went wrong. A plasma generator in the wing outside Luke's chamber overloaded. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the hallways. Alarms screamed. Elira technicians backed away, their protective suits already weakened. Containment fields blinked. Luke was sitting in his chamber, but sensors showed dangerous levels of heat and gas creeping in. The humans inside their suits were already exposed. The doors to the generator room were sealed. No alien could survive long enough to fix it. Without hesitation, Luke opened the chamber and stepped out. "Human, stop!" alarms shouted. He ignored the warnings. He moved with precise steps, careful to avoid sparks and debris. His gloves glowed faintly red from the heat, but his eyes never wavered. He lifted a fallen pipe, rerouted the gas flow, and reconnected damaged circuits with bare hands. The sparks touched his suit, but he did not flinch. He finished the repair and sealed the leak before anyone could intervene. The Elira were stunned. No human was supposed to survive this. They had predicted instant collapse, serious injury, or death. Yet Luke walked back into his chamber calm, as if nothing had happened. Lyra sat frozen at her console, watching. Her pulse raced, not from fear but from awe. "This is impossible," she whispered. "He should be gone." Marin Soul, standing behind her, said softly, "Or maybe he is built differently, stronger, not reckless." Humans survive what others cannot. That is what terrifies us. Lyra realized something else. It was not just his strength that drew her attention. It was his self-control, his patience. Humans were deadly, yes, but not out of intent. They moved carefully, even when danger surrounded them. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She replayed the footage of the plasma leak. Every movement, every breath, every calm glance of Luke. She felt a strange pull toward him, a curiosity that was no longer scientific. She wanted to see him again, to understand him, to be near him. The next session, she broke another rule. She lowered the isolation field more than ever. Luke noticed immediately. "You're getting closer," he said quietly. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I want to see what happens," Lyra admitted. Her voice trembled. "I want to know if your touch always kills or if it can change things." Luke considered her words. He did not move closer. He did not retreat. He simply said, "Then we will find out together." Lyra felt her heart beat faster. Her species' warnings rang in her mind. Every fiber told her to step back. Every rule told her to stop. But another part, curiosity, defiance, fascination, kept her leaning forward. Over the next week, she continued to test small exposures. She brushed her fingertips near the glass, felt faint warmth. even hints of strange reactions in her skin. Nothing lethal happened. Lyra began keeping a secret journal. She wrote about Luke's presence, his words, the way he moved, the way he survived danger. She wrote about her own reactions, the tingling, the pulsing, the growing urge to be near him despite everything she had been taught. The Elira technicians began to gossip. Some warned her, some watched in awe. Humans were not supposed to inspire trust or desire. They were supposed to be contained, studied, feared. Yet here was Luke, changing their perception simply by existing. One evening, Luke spoke during a routine monitoring session. "Do you ever wonder," he said, "why humans are feared so much? It is not just because we are toxic. It is because we survive what others cannot. We endure. We change ourselves, and sometimes we change others too." Lyra shivered. She had felt the change. In small ways imperceptible to sensors, she had already changed, and she did not know if she could stop. She realized the danger was no longer only physical. It was emotional, psychological. He was deadly not just in body, but in the fascination he stirred, and she was falling into it. The week ended with another emergency drill, a simulation of a reactor breach. Lyra kept the isolation slightly lowered. Luke noticed immediately and shook his head. "You are tempting fate," he said calmly. "Maybe," she admitted, "but maybe I need to see what happens when the rules are bent." He smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Then we are alike," he said. "We face what is dangerous because we must, not because we have no choice." The alarms went off. The simulation began. The force fields flickered. Lyra felt the first real pulse of danger close to her, and she felt exhilaration. Luke moved calmly beside her, despite the toxicity she knew was always present. He did not reach for her, but the closeness, the human presence, was enough to make her feel alive in ways no Elira experience had before. For the first time, Lyra understood that the danger was not only in his touch. The danger was in wanting to be near him, and that desire, once awakened, could not be contained. And so, curiosity turned into defiance. The rules were no longer the strongest law. Her fascination, her need to understand, her silent admiration for the poisonous human became something she could no longer hide. She knew one thing clearly: she would keep bending the rules, she would keep drawing near, and she would keep learning what it truly meant to survive. With him, the station was quiet that morning, but the quiet felt heavy. Alarms had been muted for a system test, but Lyra felt a tension in the air she could not ignore. She walked to the observation lab, her mind restless with thoughts of Luke. His presence lingered in her mind, even when he was safely behind his containment. She knew she was bending rules again, but she could not stop herself. Inside the lab, Luke was standing near the wall, watching the monitors. The human's calm posture, even in the sterile chamber, made her heart beat faster. She adjusted the isolation field slightly, enough to feel warmth radiate through the glass. It was risky. If sensors detected even a minor leak, alarms would sound. "You do this often," Luke said softly, his voice calm through the translator system. Lyra glanced at him. "I need to know what happens," she admitted. "Every time I let a little through, I feel something. I do not know what it is." Luke's eyes were steady. "Humans change slowly, sometimes by touch, sometimes by presence. It is not always visible, but it is real." They spent the morning monitoring his vitals and environmental readings. Lyra kept inching closer, her hands trembling over the controls. She wanted to reach through the glass, to feel him without fear. Then the emergency struck. A containment breach in the reactor wing triggered the station's alarms. Flashing red lights bathed the corridors. A pressure leak had occurred near the power conduits, and smoke and toxic gas began to fill the area. Elira personnel scrambled, their suits not designed for prolonged exposure. "Human," a voice screamed over the comms. "Do not leave your chamber." But Luke moved immediately. He opened the containment door and stepped into the danger. Sensors flared, registering toxic gases and extreme heat. The alarm screamed. Most Elira would have retreated. Luke did not. He moved carefully through the smoke, his movements precise, controlled. Lyra could not look away. Her fingers itched to touch the controls, to lower the barriers. Her pulse quickened. She knew the human's presence so close was risky, but she could not resist. She initiated a small override. A faint layer of the field dropped, just enough that Luke's heat could reach her sensors. She felt the first real sensation of him near, a warmth that tingled against her skin. "Voss," Luke said, noticing the slight shift in the field, "you are bending the rules." I have to," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to see what happens. I need to know if it can change me." He nodded once, his expression calm. "Then trust me. Stay calm. Do not panic. We will get through this." The smoke thickened. Sparks flew from the damaged conduit. Luke lifted a heavy metal panel, rerouted electrical lines, and sealed a breach, all while staying in the toxic zone. Lyra watched every movement, her chest tightening. She knew if the barriers failed completely, the human could not protect her from the effects of his own body. The danger was immediate, and yet she could not stop herself from watching, from feeling. Suddenly, a section of the wall collapsed under pressure, and Luke's arm brushed against a pipe. Hot gas escaped, and the force of it pushed him slightly toward Lyra's observation window. Without thinking, she leaned closer, her hand pressing lightly against the glass, mimicking the space he could not reach. She felt a pulse of warmth through the barrier, almost like life itself was pressing back. Luke noticed immediately. He froze for a moment, then adjusted his stance, careful not to touch her directly, but the closeness was undeniable. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice calm, even soothing. Yes," she whispered, though her heart was racing. She felt an unfamiliar energy coursing through her body, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The tingling in her skin was stronger than before, but not painful. Somehow, she was alive. More than alive, she felt awake. He completed the repair, sealed the conduit, and turned toward the chamber. His suit sensors flared red from exposure, but he did not stumble. Lyra exhaled, relief and awe mingling in her chest. She had witnessed something impossible. He had survived an environment that should have killed both him and her, and somehow she had survived exposure to his presence. "I did not die," she said softly, almost to herself. "No," Luke replied. "You are stronger than you think. Humans do not just survive. We make others survive with us, sometimes without knowing it." Lyra felt a shiver run through her. His words were more than facts, they were a promise, a truth she could not ignore. The danger of being near him, the thrill of defiance, the forbidden closeness, it all combined into a force she could not resist. For the next few days, the station was on high alert. The council investigated the breach, questioning Luke's actions. Most Elira were outraged that a human had risked the safety of the station. Some whispered that his touch might have changed Lyra herself, that she was no longer entirely like the others. Lyra noticed small changes. Her pulse responded differently. Her skin tingled when Luke moved near. She felt stronger, more aware, more alive. Sensors could not measure it, but she felt it in every fiber of her being. The scientists around her whispered about her growing fascination, but she did not care. She could not stop herself from wanting to be near him, from wanting to see what his presence would do next. During a private monitoring session, she dared to do something more. She reduced the isolation field further, enough that Luke could feel her presence faintly against the glass. His eyes met hers, steady and calm. She did not move away. She could not. "Voss," he said, his voice gentle, "this is dangerous. You could be hurt." "I know," she replied, her voice barely a whisper, "but I need to know what it is like to be close to you." He studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Then we will be careful. We will test limits safely." The first real contact happened that night. A small emergency forced them into proximity. Containment systems failed in part of the lab, and Lyra had no choice but to step into the chamber to stabilize the equipment. Luke was already there, his suit sensors flaring from the toxic exposure. They were close. Closer than any alien should ever be to a human. Their hands brushed briefly, through damaged protective gloves and layers. Lyra felt a shock run through her, a strange warmth and a pulse of energy that she could not describe. Alarm screamed, but the effect on her body was immediate. She was not harmed. Instead, she felt alive, stronger, more aware. Luke carried her to a safe zone, his calm strength guiding her. He did not let go, even as alarms demanded they separate. The Council's rules screamed in her mind, but her body responded differently. She felt connected to him in a way that was impossible to deny. Afterward, Lyra sat in her quarters, replaying every moment. She could not stop thinking about the contact, about the warmth, about the thrill of being near him despite the danger. She realized that the human's presence was changing her in ways she did not fully understand. Her body was reacting to him, her mind was drawn to him, and her rules, her training, her fears, they all seemed weaker now. She knew the Council would not approve. She knew she was risking everything, but she could not resist. The forbidden contact had opened something inside her, something she could not ignore. Curiosity had turned into desire, fascination into need, and the danger was only making it stronger. Luke noticed the change too. During subsequent sessions, he observed her reactions carefully. He did not force anything. He did not reach for her. He simply existed near her, steady and calm, allowing her to learn, to adapt, to experience the strange transformation that being close to him brought. One evening, after another minor system alarm, Luke spoke quietly. "Do you feel it?" he asked. Lyra nodded. I think so. I feel different, stronger, alive, like your presence wakes something in me." He smiled faintly. "Humans survive by enduring danger, by adapting. Maybe your kind can learn something from that. Maybe you are already learning." Lyra realized he was right. She had learned more about herself in days with him than she had in years of study. His touch, even indirect, was not only dangerous, it was transformative. And she could not resist the pull, the connection, the forbidden closeness. The weeks passed. Lyra continued bending rules, each day testing limits, each day learning more about the human and herself. The Council's warnings became background noise. The fear of his toxicity became irrelevant compared to the need to understand him, to be near him, to witness the impossible. She knew that the next time the isolation fields failed completely, she might touch him directly. And she also knew that she would not hesitate. The forbidden contact had changed everything, and there was no turning back. Luke, the poisonous human, had entered her world, and she was already transformed. Her curiosity had become defiance. Her fascination had become trust, and her fear had become something entirely new. Something she could not resist. The station was tense. Alarms and warnings had settled into a low hum, but the Council's unease was stronger than any sound. The breach, the exposure, the strange reactions Lyra experienced, all of it was under investigation. Elira society had strict rules for humans. They were to be observed, contained, and feared. No one could touch them. No one could be close. And yet, Lyra had broken all of that. Lyra sat in the lab, reviewing the sensor data from the last weeks. Her pulse was steady, but her thoughts raced. She had felt Luke's presence near her more than ever before. Her skin tingled with warmth, her muscles felt sharper, her mind clearer. She had begun to feel the strength of humans, the endurance they carried in their bodies and in their will. And she knew the Council would not understand. A message came from Dr. Marin's soul. Her voice was calm but serious. "Lyra, you must come to the observation chamber immediately. The Council wants a full report." Lyra took a deep breath. She knew what this meant. The Council would question not only Luke but her actions. They would accuse her of recklessness, of breaking the isolation rules, of risking her own life. She also knew she could not lie. The truth of what had happened and what she had felt was too important. In the chamber, council members surrounded a large table. Their faces were stern. They watched Luke on a monitor, contained in his sealed suit, calm and collected. Sensors displayed his vitals and environmental readings, but nothing showed the subtle changes he had caused in Lyra. Lyra Voss, Counselor Thurin began, report your findings. Lyra stepped forward. She felt the tension in the room, the weight of tradition and fear pressing down on her. The human, she said, does not act recklessly, he adapts. He survives environments that are dangerous to us. His presence near me caused reactions that were unexpected. My species, thought to be immune or fragile to humans, reacted differently, stronger, faster, aware in ways we cannot measure easily. A murmur ran through the council. Several members shifted uncomfortably. You are claiming, Counselor Thurin said sharply, that exposure to a human changed your physiology. Yes, Lyra replied, her voice steady. I survived conditions that would normally incapacitate any Elira. My senses are heightened, my reflexes quicker, my endurance has increased. The human did not harm me, he strengthened me. There was silence. The council had studied humans for decades. They knew humans were toxic, dangerous, lethal, but no one had reported this before. Humans had never been known to make Elira stronger. The concept was almost heretical. This is impossible, Counselor Viral said. Humans are a threat. They are poison. Your claims, they undermine every rule we have established. I know it sounds impossible, Lyra said, but it is true. His presence near me was transformative. He did not kill me. He changed me. And I am not weak. I am not harmed. I am stronger than before. Luke, watching from his chamber, nodded slightly. He remained calm. He said nothing, but the council could feel his presence in the way the sensors flared subtly, in the way the readings stabilized despite the toxic environment. Counselor Thurin slammed a clawed hand on the table. This cannot be allowed to continue, he said. Humans are dangerous. Contact must be terminated. Isolation protocols must be restored. Voss, you are hereby suspended from further interaction with the human. Lyra stood taller. She could feel her pulse quicken, not from fear, but from resolve. I cannot comply, she said. Her voice carried through the chamber. He did not harm me. He did not act recklessly. He survived, and he taught me something that no study could. Humans endure. Humans adapt. And now I understand that our fear has blinded us. He is not just toxic. He is a species that shows us our weakness and strength at the same time. A counselor gasped. Another leaned forward, suspicion written across their face. You are defying the council, Counselor Viral said. Do you not realize the danger? He could still kill you. He could expose you to toxins your body cannot handle. He could. He did not, Lyra interrupted. And I have no desire to be harmed. What I desire is to learn, to understand, to survive like him. Humans survive, and we should learn to survive too. There was another silence. Counselor Thurin's claws twitched. He had never heard such defiance from a subordinate. His eyes narrowed at Luke's monitor. The human remained calm, silent, unthreatening, yet his presence dominated the room. It was as if his very existence challenged every rule they had lived by. Very well, Thurin said finally, his voice cold. We will monitor you closely. Any further contact will result in immediate disciplinary action. The human will remain contained. Do you understand? Lyra nodded. Her heart was racing, but she did not flinch. She understood perfectly. She also understood something else. Nothing could stop her fascination, her need to study him closely, her growing trust in his presence. Back in the lab, Luke continued his routine. He watched Lyra quietly. He understood the council's fear. Humans were dangerous. Humans were unknown. And humans changed the rules simply by existing. But he also understood Lyra's defiance, and he did not judge her for it. He stayed calm, waiting, knowing she would make careful choices, even in rebellion. Over the next days, the station adjusted to the new reality. Lyra continued her work, following protocols in appearance but bending them subtly when she could. She monitored Luke, studied his habits, observed his endurance. She noticed small details, the way his hands moved, the way his breathing adapted, the way his presence seemed to calm some of the station's more sensitive systems. She noted how her own body reacted when he was near. Her skin tingled, her mind focused, her strength increased. The council debated behind closed doors. Some argued for immediate removal of the human. Others hesitated, fearing the implications. If a human could strengthen an Elira, if their biology could enhance other species, then humans were no longer simply a threat. They were something entirely different, something the council could not predict. Lyra found herself walking the corridors alone at night, thinking about Luke. She remembered the first time she felt him near, the first brush of warmth through the damaged isolation field. She remembered the emergency, the smoke, the fire, the way he had carried her to safety without hesitation. Her pulse quickened even as she recalled it. She knew she was changing, not just physically but mentally, emotionally. The pull she felt toward him was stronger than any rule, any fear, any training. She wanted to understand him completely, to see how far this transformation could go. One evening, she returned to the lab. The isolation field was down slightly. She could not help herself. Luke noticed immediately. He tilted his head, calm as ever but aware. "You are tempting fate," he said softly. "Maybe," she replied. "But maybe I need to. I cannot stay away, not now." He smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Then we will be careful. But know this, humans survive not by avoiding danger but by embracing it. And sometimes they change those who are willing to face it with them." Lyra nodded, understanding the meaning fully. It was more than survival. It was transformation. Humans endured, and those who stood near them learned to endure too. She had learned that firsthand, and there was no turning back. The next day, another minor reactor alert occurred. Lyra knew she should follow protocol, but she could not resist being near him again. She watched as Luke moved calmly to stabilize the situation. Her own heart raced, her body tingled. She felt strength she had never known. She understood now that humans were not only survivors, they were teachers of endurance, living examples of strength in the face of danger. The council had ordered restraint, but Lyra had learned defiance. She had learned that fear could be tempered by knowledge, that rules could be bent carefully, and that the poisonous human beside her was not a threat, but a key to understanding a new form of survival. As the reactor alert ended, Lyra looked at Luke. He stood calmly, sensors glowing, eyes steady. She felt the warmth of him near, the pull she could not resist, the transformation that had begun weeks ago. And she knew one thing clearly: she would not stop. She would continue to learn, to observe, to stand near him despite all warnings. The council might fear humans, might see them as toxic, might see them as a threat, but she had seen the truth. Humans survived, humans endured, and humans changed those willing to face them. And she was ready to face him, no matter the cost. The fear of what humans represented had become real in the council, but for Lyra, the fear had transformed into something else entirely. Curiosity had become trust, fascination had become need, danger had become strength. And she could not turn away. The station was tense. The council had convened in full session. Lyra knew this would be the final test, the moment when the humans' place in their society would be decided. She walked into the chamber with steady steps, her pulse calm but her mind sharp. The evidence of her own transformation and the human's presence could no longer be hidden. She had felt the change in herself. She had seen it in Luke. It was impossible to deny. The council members sat around the table, their expressions guarded. Luke stood quietly in his containment suit, calm and measured as always. Sensors scanned him constantly, showing no abnormal readings but the subtle energy he radiated. The endurance, the strength, the adaptability was impossible to ignore. Counselor Thurin's claws tapped on the table, a sharp rhythm of impatience. "Voss," he said, "you have defied the council repeatedly. Your exposure to the human has endangered both yourself and the station. Explain why we should not terminate all contact immediately." Lyra lifted her head, her voice steady. "Because he does not endanger, he teaches. Humans survive where others fail. Humans endure when we would collapse. I have been near him. I have felt it. My body, my mind, they are stronger. I am stronger. We are not harmed. We are changed in ways that make us more capable, not less. This is not danger. It is evolution." The council murmured, unease and disbelief spreading through the chamber. They had studied humans for decades, catalogued every known toxin, every dangerous reaction. They had expected death, injury, chaos. Instead, they saw calm, endurance, transformation. The human was not what they had feared, he was something else. Counselor Viro leaned forward. "And you are certain this is safe? That exposure to the human does not pose some hidden risk?" Lyra nodded. "I am certain. I have tested carefully. The human does not harm. He strengthens, he survives, and we survive with him." A quiet hum ran through the chamber as the council processed her words. Luke's sensors flared slightly in response, as if acknowledging her statement. He did not speak, but his presence alone carried meaning. The room seemed smaller, as if his calm strength filled it entirely. Thurin's voice was sharp again. "And you human, you stand here contained, yet your influence is undeniable. Explain yourself." Luke met the council's gaze calmly. "I am here to survive and to endure. I do not harm intentionally. The presence of humans can affect other species. Some are killed, some adapt. Voss chose to learn. She chose to survive, nothing more. I do not threaten your species. I offer an example of endurance, nothing else." Silence fell. The council had expected aggression, chaos, death. Instead, they saw calm, measured strength and a human who accepted rules but did not falter. Some members shifted in their seats, discomfort mixing with fascination. Lyra spoke again. "The council fears what humans represent. But what we should fear is our own weakness. Humans are dangerous because they endure. Humans survive because they face danger, not because they hide from it. If we learn from them, we will grow stronger together." Thurin's claws tapped on the table again, slower now, contemplative. "And you, Voss, you advocate that humans should be integrated into our society despite what we know of their toxicity." "Yes," Lyra said firmly. "Not for domination, not for conquest, for survival. For endurance, humans survive, they adapt, and those who are willing to learn from them are changed for the better." Another counselor, younger and less rigid, spoke quietly. "If what Voss says is true, then we have misjudged humans. Their danger is real, yes. But their endurance, it could benefit us all." Thurin exhaled slowly. The chamber remained tense, but a shift was happening. The council had feared humans as killers, as toxic beings. Now they were forced to recognize something else entirely. Humans were survivors. They endured where others could not. They changed those willing to stand near them. Lyra stepped closer to the human's chamber. She felt the warmth radiating from him through the weakened barriers. Her pulse quickened. She did not touch him directly. She did not need to, but the presence alone was enough. She felt strength, clarity, and courage flowing through her. She had been transformed, and she knew it. "Human," she said softly, "thank you. Not for fighting, not for saving, but for being. For showing us what endurance looks like." Luke nodded, eyes calm behind his visor. "We all survive the best we can. Some of us learn from it, some teach without knowing it. You have chosen to learn." Thurin's voice cut through the moment. "Enough, the council will vote." The vote was quick but tense. Some members still feared humans, feared change. Others saw the truth, the undeniable evidence of transformation and endurance. In the end, the decision was unanimous. Humans would no longer be treated solely as toxic threats. Containment protocols would remain in place for safety, but study and cautious integration were now sanctioned. Lyra would continue her research with Luke, officially under the Council's authority. Relief washed over Lyra, but it was mixed with excitement. She had won the Council's recognition, but more importantly, she had learned something profound. Humans survived by enduring, by adapting, and by facing danger without fear. She had been changed by standing near one. Back in the lab, Lyra approached Luke's chamber. She lowered the isolation field slightly, not enough to break regulations, but enough to feel the warmth and presence more clearly. "I understand now," she said softly. "Your touch is not just dangerous, it is life-giving in ways I did not expect. You survive, and we survive with you." Luke's calm gray eyes met hers. "Then you have learned the most important lesson. Humans endure, and those who stand near us endure too." They spent the next days carefully studying the limits of human endurance and its effect on Lyra. She recorded every detail: the tingling in her skin, the increased reflexes, the sharper focus. Every observation confirmed the truth she already felt. Standing near a human changed her. Word of the Council's decision spread across the station. Humans would no longer be feared as mere toxic threats. They would be respected as survivors, teachers of endurance, living examples of strength. Lyra's defiance had shown the Council that humans were not only dangerous, they were capable of inspiring growth, resilience, and transformation in other species. In private moments, Lyra allowed herself to feel the full impact. Her fascination, her curiosity, her admiration for Luke had grown into something deeper. It was no longer just science. It was trust, understanding, and a profound recognition of the human capacity to survive and endure. One evening, as the station lights dimmed, Lyra stood near Luke's chamber. She did not touch him, but the presence was enough. Warmth radiated through the weakened field. She felt her body respond: stronger muscles, faster reflexes, clearer mind. She had been changed. "We have come far," she said quietly. "Not because we were forced, not because we were afraid, but because you exist. Humans endure, and we endure with you." Luke's eyes met hers, steady and calm. "That is all humans ask, to survive, to endure. And sometimes, to show others what it means to survive too." The Council's fear of humans had shifted into cautious respect. Humans were still dangerous, still unpredictable, but they were no longer mere threats. They were symbols of endurance, living examples of survival against all odds. Lyra had learned the ultimate lesson. To stand near a human was to embrace risk, yes, but also to gain strength, resilience, and clarity beyond what her species thought possible. And so humanity's legacy on Elyra Station began, not through force or conquest, but through endurance. Luke, the poisonous human, had changed a scientist, a species, and a council. Lyra, once cautious and rule-bound, now walked freely in the knowledge that the human's touch, his mere presence, was transformative. She smiled softly, knowing that she could never return to the way things were before. The humans had entered their world, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as survivors. And those who were willing to stand near them, to learn from them, would never be the same again. The station hummed quietly, the lights glowed softly, and in the heart of the lab, Lyra felt the warmth and presence of Luke, the poisonous human who could not be resisted, whose touch was dangerous, yet whose existence was life-changing. Curiosity had become trust. Fascination had become understanding. Fear had become strength, and humanity's endurance had left its mark on the universe.